And we just heard from President Biden and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, the president's nominee for the Supreme Court. Judge Jackson has been serving on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. If confirmed, she'll replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer and would be the first African-American woman to serve on the High Court. Judge Jackson saying just moments ago that while she may fill Breyer's seat, she can never fill his shoes. Let's bring in a White House correspondent, Willie James Inman. Willie, the president delivering on a campaign promise today. I was really struck by just the image. On one side, you had Vice President Kamala Harris, the first black woman to be vice president in the United States. And now we have the first black woman to be a nominee for the nation's top court.
Yeah, that's right, Jay. And this is a key campaign promise, as you mentioned, that President Biden took a hold of during that contentious, at times, Democratic primary. And South Carolina was the key state. Of course, that's a state that was in the president's column during that time, by in large part to those black voters there in South Carolina. So the president knows that those black voters are key to the support that he got to be able to get to the White House. And fulfilling this promise is perhaps something that will activate or excite a lot of those voters. I anticipate that the White House is thinking behind the scenes about that, but it is very significant and historical. Ketanji Brown Jackson, 51 years old, a Harvard-educated lawyer, and she currently serves on the U.S. Court of Appeals in the D.C. Circuit, would be the first black woman to be on the Supreme Court if she is confirmed by the Senate. And this is something that the president wants to move forward as quickly as possible. Democrats have indicated that they want to speed up this timeline and have it similar to a timeline that Justice Amy Coney Barrett went through when President Trump nominated her to the High Court during the 2020 election in 2020, of course. But I just also want to talk about a little bit more about her experience. She, of course, is currently serving on the U.S. Court of Appeals, and she was appointed by President Biden to that post last year. She was confirmed with a bipartisan vote, so to speak. So at least 3 Republicans voting for her there. So the president, in nominating her today, is hoping that he can get that bipartisan support. Remember that he would need every Democrat on board to support his nominee for this to get through. They don't necessarily need Republican support, but this president, he's oftentimes reached across the aisles to try to get Republicans to come on board with not only his legislative agenda, but in nominating the Supreme Court justice, as he mentioned in his remarks there as well, Jay.
Yeah, the president having nothing but high praise for Judge Jackson, saying she has an independent mind, extraordinary qualifications, saying that she is a proven consensus builder. And according to the president, she was confirmed by the Senate 3 times for other positions. So obviously talking up her qualifications, her experience there. Let's talk about her next steps in this confirmation process. Willie, what happens next?
Yeah, so first goes the nomination, and then comes the confirmation process. Of course, there's a little bit of decorum involved with this whole nomination process. She is set to perhaps meet key Senate leadership perhaps as early as next week. Those meetings will take place. Down the line, they'll, of course, have a committee hearing. Those hearings are very public, and they can get contentious at times, as they have been in the past. So that's part of the process, and you of course have that vote, but you have to have that vote at the committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, first before everything moves to the Senate floor, where they'll just need Democratic support, 50 votes, with Vice President Kamala Harris casting the tie-breaking vote for Democrats to be able to get this nominee through with Ketanji Brown Jackson. But clearly weeks, perhaps months ahead of this process. Maybe this can be done by the summer, but as I mentioned, Democrats are aiming to wrap this up as quickly as possible. And this is something that I anticipate that Democrats will try to use to put a little fuel in the fire in terms of ramping up their Democratic base ahead of the midterm election. Remember, this is an election year, and Democrats haven't really been doing well in terms of poll numbers. The president included in that. His poll numbers are abysmal right now. So they're looking for any type of win that they can put before voters and say, here is what we're doing. We got this nominee through, although it doesn't change the the makeup of the court, the conservative lean of the court doesn't change that, but just having the significance of an African-American woman serving on the high court alone, I anticipate will activate and excite the Democratic base. Jay.
And just briefly, Willie, are Republicans going to back this choice? She had bipartisan support for her previous position. Will that be the case this time around?
Yeah, well, we've already seen some pushback from Republicans about this choice. Everything from questioning the timing with everything going on in the world and talking about the Ukraine-Russia crisis and criticizing the progressive lean, per se, that the president is going along with in terms of accusing the president of going along with a progressive lean with this nomination. But she did receive at least 3 Republican votes when she was confirmed last time around. Those key votes could be Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, also Maine Senator Susan Collins is a potentially key vote, and Lindsey Graham. He could potentially be a key vote here, but it looks like he himself doesn't necessarily support Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination thus far. He did mention in a statement that he'd have to look at her qualifications a little bit further. He mentioned before that he had supported a different candidate, Justice J. Michelle Childs, who is a South Carolinian, so of course she has some home-based support there. But any Republican support, I think the White House will welcome. But we'll just have to wait and see once this confirmation process starts how it'll all play out, Jay.
All right, Willie James Inman reporting live for us from the White House. And there she is again, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Supreme Court Justice nominee. The announcement just moments ago.